For me, when I was also meeting people who were HIV positive, you can't talk about HIV without talking about orphans, because HIV creates orphans.
This is primarily happening in Africa, where we have
It's happening around the rest of every place where people are HIV positive. If they don't have the medication, they will die within a few years, and they will leave children who some are HIV positive themselves, but they will definitely leave. The greatest preponderance is in Southern Africa, but it's around the world. There are 163 million children in our world today without moms and dads. 15 million of them in Africa just due to HIV, but 163 million children without moms or dads in our world. For me, it came down to, it's not just what I think or what I feel, it's got to be, my life is based on the Word. And in James 1:27, it says that pure religion, the religion that God counts, is the religion that takes care of widows and orphans in their distress. And so for me, it's not about what do I, Kate Warren, do, but it's what does God call those who are Christ followers to do. When I was in Africa, again, the first time seeing things through a whole new set of eyes, I visited a woman named Flora, who was HIV positive. And Flora's life was just so unlike my life that I just couldn't even believe it. Her story was her husband had an affair. And he had an affair with a woman who was HIV positive. He didn't know it, but she was HIV positive. And that infected Flora's husband, and so he became HIV positive. And then the woman that he had a relationship with became pregnant, and that baby was born HIV positive. But he had then come back to their home and brought HIV into their home, and Flora became HIV positive. And so and then he added insult to injury by saying he wanted that mistress and her baby to live in the house with them. So Flora is a mom of 3 children, now is HIV positive because her husband's been unfaithful to her. He's HIV positive and dying. The mistress is in the house and is HIV positive, is dying. And the little baby that they have is HIV positive and dying. And I looked at her and I said, Flora, what can I say to my friends? I'm going back to my country. What do I tell them to pray for you? And to me, it would have been very reasonable for her to say something like, you pray that that rat of a husband of mine dies quickly and gets out of my life because he has ruined my life. Or something like, would you pray that I have access to medication? But she didn't. She looked at me and she said, would you pray for my children? Who will take care of my children when I die? Our neighbors are going to know that I died of AIDS, and they're not going to want to take care of my children. What will become of my children? And Flora was the first person, the first woman that I've heard say those words, but I've heard those words repeated around the world and in my community with some of the Hispanic women whose husbands who are there illegally, and their husbands have had affairs and brought HIV into their home, and now they're in this position of they're here illegally, but they're dying of HIV, and what's going to happen with their children? It's not just in Africa, it is in our communities where women are asking, what will happen to my children when I die? And so if I take the scripture of James 1:27 and know that God is evaluating my walk with him based on my compassion for widows and orphans and how I take care of them, and I look at the practical situations where I've met these women and these children who are alone, how can I do anything but say, I must do something about the fact that there are 163 million children who are orphaned in our world. So at our church, we've started not only the HIV/AIDS initiative, but an orphan care initiative. Let me tell you this. Let me bring it just even a little closer to home. In the United States, there are 500,000 children in the foster care system. 500,000 American children are in the foster care system. 118,000 of those are available to be adopted. If one family in every 4 churches in the United States adopted one of those 118,000 children, we would have no orphans in the United States. That's doable. That's not 163 million. That's 118,000. One family out of every 4 churches. There's something practical we can do. The foster care adoption system in the United States is amazing. It's free. It doesn't cost you to foster adopt. There's no excuses. But the thing that I tell people is I don't believe that everyone is supposed to adopt, but everyone is, according to James 1:27, to do something for these little ones. If you're not going to adopt, make sure that you're helping the family who is. If you're not going to be feeling like God's led you to be a foster adoptive parent, then you get involved with the children who are vulnerable. There's something that everybody can do. Sorry, I told you I get kind of passionate about this.
There's a significant, then what you're proposing is a significant difference individual churches can make if they could focus on attempting to find a family in the church who could adopt one child. That would even be among 4 churches in the U.S.
Absolutely. We would have no orphans. We would have no orphans in the United States. It's shameful that a country like the United States has orphans. I mean, we can look at other places around the world and say, oh, extreme poverty and war and hardship, and of course there are going to be orphans. But